This is BBC World News. I'm Karen Giannoni. Our top stories. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Nobel Peace Prize laureate and veteran of South Africa's struggle against apartheid, has died at the age of 90. New coronavirus restrictions come into force in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland as the UK's devolved nations combat the spread of the Omicron variant.
With the 2 metre rule, we've probably lost 20% of the capacity, so we have had to phone a few people and unfortunately cancel people for New Year's Eve.
Omicron is causing chaos in the airline industry. More than 6,000 flights cancelled around the world over the Christmas weekend. China's birth rate continues to plummet despite ending its 1- and 2-child policy. We have a special report on the mother trying to encourage larger families. Hello, welcome to BBC World News. We start with the breaking news that the former Anglican Archbishop of Cape Town and Nobel Peace Prize winner Desmond Tutu has died at the age of 90. He was a key figure in hastening the end of South Africa's apartheid regime. After Nelson Mandela became president, Tutu headed the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, investigating the crimes of the apartheid era. President Cyril Ramaphosa has described him as an outstanding South African. Nomsa Maseko looks back at his life.
He was, first and foremost, a priest, not a politician. But for the best part of half a century, he was the face of reconciliation and South Africa's moral compass.
The system of this country, apartheid, is immoral. The system of this country is evil.
Desmond Mbilo Tutu remained outside of party politics, but he used the church as a platform for protest against white minority rule. It was under South Africa's oppressive government that he first campaigned against apartheid. When emotions were boiling over, his influence helped prevent bloodshed, and in 1984 he was given the highest recognition for his efforts.
When you've been given the Nobel Peace Prize, it doesn't really belong to you, or in a way you can say it makes you answerable to the world. I mean, the world, as it were, has a piece of you.
He was a compassionate and sensitive man, one who would cry along with the victims as they gave their harrowing evidence at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It was Tutu who coined the phrase Rainbow Nation to describe South Africa's ethnic diversity, preaching unity in the face of adversity. But even after South Africa became a democratic country, Desmond Tutu was not afraid to speak out against injustices, and he was often scathing in his criticism of the governing ANC.
I am warning you. I am warning you that we will pray as we prayed for the downfall of the apartheid government. We will pray for the downfall of a government that misrepresents us.
A spiritual figure with a global influence, there were few issues in the world that Desmond Tutu hasn't spoken out about, from human rights abuses to climate change to poverty.
When you want peace, you negotiate not with your friends. That is what at least we discovered in South Africa. That is what they discovered in Northern Ireland. You talk to the ones that you least like.
I will remember his moral courage that after going on his knees, no situation was insurmountable. And for him, that Roman passage that if God is for us, nothing can be against us. It was not just a cliche, it was something that he lived.
It's an enormous loss for South Africa. But Desmond Tutu's irrepressible sense of humor and relentless pursuit of justice will long be remembered by all.
Bishop Desmond Tutu, who has died in South Africa at the age of 90, and in a few minutes' time we'll speak to Nomsa Maseko, who you heard in that report live from South Africa. Fresh coronavirus restrictions have come into force in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland to try to slow the spread of the Omicron variant in the UK. Ministers in England aren't expected to discuss whether to impose further measures until Monday. Thomas Morgan, who's been looking at how the rules now differ across the 4 nations of the UK.
Another winter and another set of restrictions. Social life will be curtailed yet again in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, as the devolved governments have brought restrictions in again as an attempt to slow the spread of the Omicron variant, to ease the pressure on the NHS and to give more people the opportunity to be boosted at mass vaccination centres. Having only reopened less than 6 months ago, nightclubs will have to turn their lights off once again in both Wales and Northern Ireland from today. Some industry bosses feel like they're being made scapegoats in this latest round of rules.
We essentially had 4.5 months of trade and we're back here again. And the issue is that we're not clear when this will be lifted. We haven't been provided yet with any data on why this sector particularly has been closed and what conditions will need to be met for this sector to be reopened again.
Restrictions on large events and spectator sports will also apply from today in Wales and Scotland. There were due to be 10,000 fans here at Cardiff Arms Park today to watch the festive rugby derby. They'll now have to watch from home. A total ban on spectators at sporting and large events in Wales from now on. But in Scotland, the Premier League have moved their winter break forward due to measures to limiting maximum capacity in stadiums there, much to the dismay of fans. Across all hospitality venues, the rule of 6 is back in Wales, as is social distancing. Smaller tables mean smaller profits, and 2 meters means fewer guests.
The 2 metre rule obviously has a massive effect. New Year's Eve, we've got full capacity, but with the 2 metre rule, we've probably lost 20% of the capacity, so we have had to phone a few people and unfortunately cancel people for New Year's Eve.
While restrictions in Northern Ireland and at Scottish pubs and restaurants come into force tomorrow, the Stormont executive said they would keep the measures under review, whilst First Minister Nicola Sturgeon told the public theirs would be in place for at least 3 weeks. Meanwhile, her counterpart further south, Mark Drakeford, said rules would be reviewed frequently. His next 3-weekly assessment is due the end of January. With large events due to be attended by thousands of people across the UK called off, it looks like this New Year's Eve will be just as subdued as the last. Thomas Morgan, BBC News.
Well, despite many countries avoiding lockdowns over the holidays, cases of the virus are surging around the world. Let's take a look at some countries reaching a record number of cases. In France, health officials have registered more than 100,000 daily infections. That's a new record for 3 consecutive days. Italy has registered more than 50,000 daily cases, its highest number since the beginning of the pandemic. And in Australia, a new record number of cases forced testing clinics to close, as more than 9,000 were reported on Christmas Day. The surge has disrupted holiday plans for many families, some even having to spend Christmas isolating. The BBC's Azadeh Mashiri reports.
Positive COVID tests, travel restrictions and flight cancellations. For some, this isn't the merriest holiday season. Many governments have insisted Christmas isn't cancelled this year. But with the Omicron variant spreading and cases of coronavirus on the rise, many have been forced to spend Christmas in isolation. This happened to one mother whose son fell ill.
We tested him that morning and he was instantly positive. Before it had even finished running along the lateral flow test strip, the red line was there. So yeah, heart sank. All of our Christmas plans stopped. Really gutted.
Even without a positive COVID test, millions around the world have had their travel disrupted by the pandemic, with last-minute travel restrictions forcing many to change their plans. And airlines cancelling more than 4,000 flights around the world, some of their own staff having to isolate with COVID. I caught up with my own cousin, whose plans were hit by travel restrictions and COVID.
So Tara, our family's in France. I'm here in the BBC newsroom. I chose to be here, I volunteered, but you're alone on Christmas Day with your partner in London. What happened?
Once the travel restrictions kicked in, I sort of rearranged my plans to spend Christmas here in London with my partner's family. And then we essentially just started getting symptoms on Monday, tested positive for COVID on Wednesday. and obviously have been isolating since. So our Christmas plans on both sides have been sort of, thrown into a bit of chaos because of COVID.
So despite best efforts to make this Christmas better than the last, the pandemic has still been front and centre of this holiday season. Azadeh Mashiri, BBC News.
Well, let's return to the breaking news that the former Archbishop Desmond Tutu, one of the icons of the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, has died at the age of 90. Let's go over to our correspondent Nomsa Maseko, who joins us live from Johannesburg. Nomsa, what have we learned about Desmond Tutu's death?
Well, the details have not been made available at this stage. All we know is from a statement that was released by the President of South Africa, President Ramaphosa, who announced the death of the Archbishop. But we do know that the Archbishop had been battling prostate cancer for about 2 decades now. And South Africans woke up to the shocking news that he is no more. South Africa, there has been, condolences, all types of messages and fond memories that have been shared all over the streets here in South Africa, and of course on social media, a lot of people talking about what they will remember the Archbishop by, and many others quoting his favorite quotes that he has spoken about over the years.
Nomsa, he was 90. How much of a part had Desmond Tutu played in public life in South Africa and beyond in recent years?
Well, in public life, he was no longer, giving interviews and things like that. But there would be statements that would be released from the Desmond Tutu and Leah Tutu Foundation, Leah being his wife, speaking about whatever matters that were discussion points here in South Africa. But publicly, he was no longer speaking, but people knew that he was somebody that they could still count on, because he was indeed South Africa's moral compass, who not only spoke about the bad things during the apartheid years when he fought against the injustices of the past, but also fought, against the injustices of the present government, which is the African National Congress.
And just tell us what sort of role he played. I mean, remarkably, he was made Archbishop of Cape Town in 1986, long before apartheid ended. How much power did he have in that role to speak out and to put pressure?
He used the church to speak about the injustices of this country. Very little, was known of him, but when he went out to speak about the injustices, he used his influence to stop the necklacing of people. Back in the days of apartheid, there were black people who were seen as spies here in South Africa, and they would be torched and literally burnt alive. But he was that kind of unifying figure who even stopped those kind of killings, because black on black violence had become so prevalent here in the country when all of this, during just before the end of apartheid and the incoming black government. So there was black on black violence and things where he really stood out and put his own life in danger to ensure that South Africa does become a democracy. He was good friends, of course, with the late former president, Nelson Mandela, and he spoke fondly about him as well. But he was, as time went on, sidelined by the current government. He even said that he was not even invited to speak at the funeral of his best friend, Nelson Mandela. But that still did not make him, keep quiet and not speak about whatever injustices that were happening during this government.
And Nomsa, as you say, he was so deadly serious about human rights and racial equality, but he was also so famous for his sense of humour, his naughtiness, his rebelliousness.
Indeed, it was not just about the sense of humour, but also the dancing. Have you ever seen him dance? It was just the most incredible thing to watch. He was really that kind of person who not only, spoke about the sad times of that the country went through, but also, the jovial times during the 2010 World Cup. Just the day before the opening game, there was a big concert at the stadium here in Johannesburg, the stadium in Soweto, and he was there speaking about how happy he was that he got to see the first World Cup taking place here in this country. So he really was a lovely person that South Africans will truly remember him by.
Indeed, Nomsa, thank you very much. Nomsa Maseko, the BBC's correspondent there in Johannesburg, and I'm sure many videos of Desmond Tutu will be shared today on social media of those moments in his life. Nomsa Maseko there. Stay with us on BBC World News, still to come. Swimmers are taking the chilly plunge across the UK. We're going to hear from one group who are getting ready to continue that Christmas tradition.
Next on Hard Talk, my guest is John Kerry, former US Secretary of State, now Joe Biden's special climate envoy. Only urgent and radical action can prevent potentially catastrophic global warming. Can America lead an effective global response?
You're watching BBC World News. I'm Cara Giannoni. The headlines. Former Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Nobel Peace Prize laureate and veteran of South Africa's struggle against apartheid, has died at the age of 90. New coronavirus restrictions have come into force in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland as the UK's devolved nations try to combat the spread of the Omicron variant. For decades, China was known as the country where you could only have one child. That all changed recently to try to overcome a new problem, an ageing population. But the relaxation of the rules hasn't convinced many young Chinese couples now used to one-child families that having more kids is the way to go. Enter the mother of three who's taking it upon herself to change their minds. Here's our China correspondent, Stephen McDonnell.
A three-child family is unusual in China. This successful working mother wants to change that, using herself as an example. She's selling her beauty products online and also the idea of big families. 1 minute it's shampoo and weight loss treatments, the next it's family photos and images of achievement.
People always say, you have money, that's why you can raise 3 kids. But when we gave birth to the first one, we didn't have much money. When our second baby came along, our business was under big pressure. We couldn't decide whether to have him or not. We went ahead, and our business grew. Actually, kids make you more responsible.
China's one-child policy started in the 1980s to manage a booming population. Now it's changed to encourage more children because of an ageing population. However, the new problem is convincing young people to have multiple kids.
In the months since the new policy was announced, there does already seem to have been something of a shift in people's attitudes here. Initially, it was very easy to find somebody who would say, there's no way I'm going to consider having more than one child. Now, you are starting to get people saying, I would consider it.
When our financial situation stabilizes, maybe we'll think about it.
Yet many remain sceptical.
I don't want a second one yet.
At Chen Ting's company, having more children is encouraged.
Here, most employees are female. Most have kids. They have 2 or more. I wish society could be more accepting of working mothers. They won't give up easily. They have great spirit. They can be remarkable in the workplace.
Government officials would love this message to her large audience. Chen Ting says it's simply what she believes.
I want to say to other women, don't panic. Just go with the flow. This is not something money can buy.
She's certainly drawing attention here. Stephen McDonnell, BBC News, Hangzhou.
The Motown singer Wanda Young, who sang the 1961 classic Please Mr. Postman, has died at the age of 78. Young was the lead singer of the Marvelettes for several years in the 1960s before going on to have a solo career. The Marvelettes were widely regarded as the first key female Motown group, helping to pave the way for other high-profile acts like the Supremes and Martha Reeves. Now for some, a Boxing Day dip in the sea is as much of a Christmas tradition as turkey and crackers. On the Yorkshire coast in England, swimmers will be hopping into the North Sea, braving the waves in all manner of costumes and fancy dress. Alison Freeman has been to meet some of them.
They're used to being in the cold and getting wet. But the lads from Redcar Rugby Club's under-14s are still a little nervous about jumping in the North Sea as part of the annual Boxing Day dip.
Freezing! Oh no, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be very cold, I know that.
But they're doing it for a good cause, The Junction, a charity in the town which helps support the mental health of young people, like them and their friends.
I've just lost a whole lot of confidence, like not able to talk to people, just normal general stuff.
So are you talking about because of the pandemic, basically?
Not just the pandemic, I also worried about stuff that's going to happen in the future, like what happened in the past, like SATs and GCSEs.
I needed it in primary because it was bad in there. So they took me into a room, then they talked to me and they asked how I was, and then they tried to help me through it.
How did that make you feel?
It made me feel better, a lot better.
We've seen kind of increase in numbers accessing our service due to COVID, limiting people's social activities, and we've been able to offer kind of support just through kind of talking and through doing intervention. The community fundraisers are a vital part of our funding stream, and the money they raise is able to buy resources and materials that we just wouldn't have been able to provide otherwise.
Adam Illingworth is the reason his mum Kate will be taking part in the dip for a fourth time. Aged 5, he was diagnosed with a brain tumour and spent a lot of time in hospital, where his family relied upon the support of Young Lives versus Cancer.
To see him go through all that is just horrendous, but the help and support you do get from the likes of Young Lives versus Cancer is just amazing. And they were always there for us, any time of the day, night, any time. They helped us so much.
Despite beating cancer, Adam died at the age of 20 from a seizure. So his family set up a fund in his name to support the charity that helped him. A lot of people think it's just a bit of fun, but there are some really serious stories behind the dip then.
Yes, yeah, they gave so much to Adam, and there's other families going through it still, and it's just so nice to help out and know that you're doing a good thing for them as well. Sorry, I'm going.
The rugby boys will be braving the cold as a team, something that their coach, who's also Caden's mum, thinks is important.
For the team to get people behind them and sort of backing them up, that's really good, that's really special.
So are you going to be going in the water?
No. By the time I'd got to the sea, they'd be on their way out anyway, so I'll leave that to them.
Is it worth it because you know you're going to be raising money?
Yeah, if we just do it for the laugh, then there's no really point, is there? Just so it's getting cold.
Alison Freeman, BBC News, Redcar.
And we will be live to that very beach next hour here on BBC World News, where they will be swimming in a very cold sea. Now, for most people around the world, Christmas Day has drawn to a close. It has been another difficult festive season, but people still found time to celebrate. Tim Allman reports.
Sometimes you just have to make the best of things. Here in northern Romania, Father Christmas and a troupe of carol singers were doing the rounds, bringing a little festive cheer and an awful lot of sugar.
Ho, ho, ho. We've given out more than 5,000 chocolates, cakes, thousands of candles, waffles and greetings for every home.
People celebrate in a variety of different ways. In Bournemouth, for instance, they ran into the sea, despite the far from ideal temperatures. A certain dash of masochism, perhaps, but some altruism as well. It was all in aid of a local charity. Or Christmas compassion in Rome, the Church of Santa Maria laying on its traditional annual lunch for the poor and the needy. A generosity of spirit perhaps needed now more than ever.
Fighting together against difficulties and accepting that hope is also fragile, like a child. It needs to be cared for, protected and nourished. That's how we do it, with friendship, the strength of sympathy.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, Happy New Year from all of Expedition 66.
And Christmas wishes from 400 kilometres up above the Earth. The crew of the International Space Station, most wearing festive hats, celebrating the holidays as best they can in zero gravity. Amongst their number, Father Christmas, riding what appears to be a turtle. He certainly gets about. Tim Allman, BBC News.
Thanks very much for watching BBC World News. That's it from me. Goodbye.